And everybody, we're just delighted that you're here. Again, I'm Deb Harman, and I am with Parasol Publications. My flagship is Narrative Arc. I'm now going to let Darren Ware talk with you about some of our pubs a bit, and then I will be giving you a presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. The Narrative Arc is our flagship publication. The very successful pub focuses on memoir and personal essay. We love interesting, unusual, and contemporary stories. As Deb will talk about, we want your authentic voice and your vulnerability to shine through. We also have the Win Phone, Imogene's Notebook, Namaste Now, and Travel Memoirs is the publication that I started at the end of October last year with Deb's help and guidance. As the name implies, we're looking for memoir-style stories from your travels. It might be a life-changing incident, a remarkable character you met along the way, the good and the bad, but we don't want your itinerary or travel log or the best places to visit. We always want to support our writers and have the very successful Under the Boost program. We are looking for your best work to support and promote on the platform. We are discerning. Not everyone will be approved, and we will edit your story. We want to make sure you present your best work and have every opportunity for a possible boost. Now let's bring Deb back in here and listen to the discussion.
Glad that you're here today. This workshop assumes that you have a working knowledge of memoirs and personal essays. If you need to learn specifics about those genres, I'll link an article about them to this presentation, which I'm going to be publishing later today, and you can review that. We'll be talking about authenticity and vulnerability in your writing in order to write really fabulous essays. If you're here, you may already write for Parasol Pubs and you're already having great success with your writing. If that's the case, thank you so much. When any magazine editor or medium editor asks for authentic nonfiction, true stories, that means they want you, the writer, to write from personal experience. The words author and authentic start with the same Latin root, right? The author, the master, the leader, the creator. There's only one you. Memoirs and personal essays written from your point of view and using the personal pronoun I need to show vulnerability. I know you may have learned in high school and college not to use I. You've graduated, so go ahead. Let's talk about what it means to be vulnerable. To be vulnerable in your writing is to show some weakness, your inadequacy in a situation, perhaps your inability to understand an event. I don't mean that you need to write in such a way that you look like an idiot. What I mean is, don't be afraid to show your humanity and humility in action. We as human beings don't always make the best decisions, especially in moments of stress. The more relatable and honest you are in creating any scene, the more your reader will relate and appreciate it. A few days ago in the Narrative Arc publication, Dr. Martha Manning wrote about her upcoming 75th birthday. She bitches at her husband for asking for a wheelchair at the airport for her. Someone calls them a cute old couple, and she is pissed off because it's ageist. We're all getting older, and she isn't afraid to admit she's not happy about it. That's strong writing, authentic, vulnerable writing. Ellen Eastwood, in a recent essay, says she was the kid who hated summer. Why? She wanted to get away from a bad home environment. Ellen's essay is vulnerable because she doesn't paint her childhood in rosy pastel colors. She's honest. Another writer, Christine Schoenwald, writes about her complicated situation with her mom. She experiences grief when her mom dies, but in her essay, she shares her feelings of relief as well. Is she worried that people will judge her for that? Sure, but it's her story, and she's learned to be authentic and tell the truth about herself. In our day-to-day lives, often people are inclined to want to hide behind the mask, to put up a false front, a facade of perfection and normalcy. In the personal essay and memoir world, that's boring writing. I will add that writing yourself without flaws is usually not believable. One writer I've worked with quite a lot is unable to do that. No matter how many times I ask her to show some little character fault we can relate with, nope, can't do it. It makes you more human, though. The beautiful part of sharing an honest, authentic story, your nonfiction story from your point of view, is that you will find people who relate with you. If you're vulnerable and authentic in your writing, your readers will love it. Jim Parton and Kim Kelly Stamp are strong examples of essayists who show great vulnerability and authenticity. Both are members of the LGBTQ community, and both writers left traditional heterosexual marriages. How vulnerable to describe the heartache of what it was like to break up their marriages. Coming out is not easy. The favor these writers do showing how hard it is, and that's the favor, and other readers learn from them, and often relate. It's community building and sharing so other people don't feel isolated. Some of you might be thinking, I don't want to write trauma, but it's not trauma. It's human beings grappling with living honestly, and that's living well. Okay, you may ask, how can I write in an authentic and vulnerable voice? Here are some tips that I put together for you. When we get to the Q&A, feel free to ask any questions about these. Okay, let go of the inner critic and go deep. Often there are life issues you've experienced, and you may say, I could never write about that. In fact, that was the case with me when I first started writing my memoir, which is Love and Loss in Cambodia. I realized in order to tell my story and convey my personal truth, I had to share some really personal info about myself. Now, I struggled with that. Did I have to tell that part? Could I leave a really significant issue out of my story and still have a strong memoir? No, I couldn't. I had to let go of my inner critic and write my truth. But damn, it was hard. My memoir has been on Amazon's bestseller lists in categories of Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam since it was published, and I'm honored that many of you have purchased and reviewed my book, and I thank you for that. And thank you for Medium. Thank you to Medium for letting me display my book. Here's a technique that's worked for me too. I found that thinking about my personal values is helpful when I'm writing my stories. I honor my life. I deserve to share my point of view. I can tell my story my way. If someone disagrees, they may rewrite the story from their point of view. As a woman, I am pro-choice. Next, I believe we all have the right to love who we love without fear, without embarrassment. Also, I believe my experience of the world, which I interpret through my lens, is valid. I trust my thoughts and perceptions, and they hold as much weight as the next person's. All of these values and these beliefs give me the confidence I need to write really personal stories. Allow yourself permission to write about your life without fear of others judging you. If you must, use a false name to write your stories. Let that be your shield. Pseudonyms are used by many of our writers online. Here's a technique that I learned from someone. Think of the story that you're absolutely afraid to tell. You can't even imagine putting it on paper. Think of it like this. You are writing work that no one else needs to see. When you start writing your story on paper or on the computer, go into your flow state with it. Write whatever comes to mind. Tell the story to yourself. No one needs to see it. Do that messy first draft. After you're done with it, you can rip it up, you can delete it, but take your power, write your story, lose your fear. That story does not define you, it does not judge you or control you. You might even end up revising and publishing it. Moving on. How can I write about my family or people I know? Everyone on platform will become familiar with this phrase at some point if they write memoir. This is from Anne Lamott, Bird by Bird. You own everything that happened to you. Tell your stories. If people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better. Now, that's not to say you should go ahead and carve up your sister-in-law with your writer's pen. It does mean, however, that you get to tell your story from your own point of view. If you need to give the person in your life a pseudonym, do that. If you need to make them your cousin instead of your sister-in-law, do that. but you get to tell the story. On a side note, I've written a good deal about my family. Most of them have passed on. I have found myself able to write some hard truths, and I'm sure that neither of my parents would disagree with anything I've written. I always hold my most personal information back, by the way. I might show you the cut of my cloth, but that doesn't mean I'm going to show you my undergarments. Writers, honor your life by writing about it candidly. Respect your gender, your socioeconomic status, your place in a home or a family unit when you were a child. Respect and honor yourself by allowing others to experience you as you really are, not some fake bullshit version of yourself. This also is from Anne Lamott. If something inside of you is real, we will probably find it interesting and it will probably be universal. So you must risk placing real emotion at the center of your work. Right straight into the emotional center of things, right toward vulnerability. Risk being unliked. Tell the truth as you understand it. If you're a writer, you have a moral obligation to do this, and it's a revolutionary act. Truth is always subversive. Give yourself permission to write about your past choices, especially those that you aren't especially proud of, but maybe have changed your life. Charles Amamiya, a writer on Platform I love working with, spent 2 years in federal prison for his participation in manufacturing illegal drugs. Now he has a job in the tech industry and visits the same people and helps incarcerated people. He writes about his life. He holds nothing back, and it is fascinating reading. Consider how your environment influenced and affected you in your formative years. Write about your family relationships in such a way not to judge, but to document. Don't judge. Rather than say, my uncle was foolish, show us. My uncle used diesel fuel to start a fire in his living room. Don't judge. Rather than say, my best friend was a drunk, show us. My best friend bought 5/5 of Grey Goose every week, and they were gone before the weekend. Okay, I'm getting towards the end of my talk now, and I want to give you a few more helpful tips to help you with your writing. Again, I'll publish this so that you can look at it at your leisure. Here are a few of my personal writing tools. Weave in description. I like using a slow motion moment in my writing, that one crystalline paragraph that allows a reader to be there with you. If you're a memoirist, like Joe Gay, like me, like Darren, and all of the people that write with us, you probably have an excellent memory. Describe what you saw, impart some tone to it, show us your experience, and put us in the scene. Here's another trick. Speed up actions so that you can convey urgency in parts. You can achieve that with short, terse sentences and one-syllable words. Here's another tip. Write dialogue sparingly and never use dialogue that doesn't move the narrative forward. For dialogue tags, use said. Never use uttered, exclaimed, admonished, giggled, chuckled, rebuked, all that. Don't use those. Just use said. Next, cut filler words such as really, very bad, had, that. For online writing, especially on Medium, by the way, I usually avoid the continuous tenses. Those are words like being, doing, going, looking, taking. If it ends in ing, try to put it in present tense. Keep things crisp. Last, if you are new to writing for publications on Medium, if you find editors who are willing to read through your submissions and help you, let them. Don't argue. Take it in and ask questions. They're not criticizing you. Don't take it personally. I'll also add that at Parasol Pubs, we have a dozen really strong writers on our team. Several are professionals with bylines at New York Times, LA Times, HuffPost, Salon, and more. We all edit each other's work in the same way we edit your submissions to our pubs. The value of a second set of eyes is tremendous. Before we go into Q&A, I'd like to announce a few winners of a couple of writing contests we had to celebrate Medium Day as follows. Winners from the Narrative Arc Love Story Contest. nonfiction love story memoir. First place is Annie Forbes Cooper, Somewhere on the North Fuggin' Sea. Congrats. Second place, Shaler McClure Wright. She writes Left Behind in Liguria. Not sure how to say that. It's in Italy. A love story. Third place, Patrick Metzger. Brenda, me, and Why I'm Happy We Didn't Have Social Media, Keeping Us in Touch Forever. By the way, go look at Patrick's story. I like that contemporary tone he uses. Our poetry contest from Imogene's notebook. Here are the winners. First place is Jim Parton, Quiet Childhood Road. He's first prize. Very poignant poem. I love it. Second place, one of our favorite poets, Alistair J. Craft, The Branches Droop So Low. Beautiful. Third place, Daryl Boyd, The Old Man's Paradise. Congratulations to you all, and thank you so much. Now we're going to go ahead and we are going to open it up to Q&A. And Darren, I bet you saw some questions, so I'll go ahead and let you feed me some if you have some.
Okay. I did just wanted to point out in the chat that Annie's in there. So congratulations, Annie. She did hear that she won. Great work. And to all the winners, congratulations. Um, there's there hasn't been a lot of questions, so please send them in either by chat or on the Q&A, better on the Q&A. Ellen did highlight something that you might want to touch on again. I don't know if you have more to add to it, but she quoted you saying truth is always subversive, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. So
Yeah, truth is subversive because often, and especially in order to save face and look good, we all want to look like we're just perfect, honest, nice people all the time. But the reality is that we make big mistakes. And often it's helpful for other people to realize that you're human, that maybe you lost your best friend's favorite necklace, that maybe you are gay, that maybe you are a different person than people think you are, that while you are from a different socioeconomic background, maybe you're ashamed to write about that. No, don't. It's real stuff. I recently wrote a memoir about growing up poor in America, and it's done really, really well. And people aren't used to people like me writing about what it's like to grow up without enough clothing. And we always had food, Tillamook ice cream and cheese and all that stuff, and bologna. And I grew up in the 60s and 70s, so it was Spam and it was that Underwood ham that I was recently writing about in Bruce Coulter's essays. But yeah, I didn't have socks. I used to go steal socks from my dad's sock drawer. It was hard. So, be honest about who you are and how you grew up.
um, Tammy wrote and she asked, can we please share links to the publications? So I can just mention here, check out our Parasol publications page and you'll have all the submission guidelines to all of our publications and links to the publications as well. So that's medium.com/parasol hyphen publications.
I see a
Uh,
question from Lachelle Tinder that I'm going to read aloud.
sure.
How should we handle a failed marriage when we're unable to change who the person is? I'm particularly challenged with this, a 24-year failed marriage that I want to write about. Okay, Lachelle. Um, as I mentioned in my talk, it is okay for you to write under a pseudonym or a different name. And I do have some people in my pubs who even have two accounts because one of them is, stuff that they want under their name. And some of the things that they write about under the pseudonym are things like that failed marriage. I would say it kind of depends on how worried you are about that spouse that you're stuck with finding your work. I've been writing very honestly about my first marriage, which was a failed marriage, but of course, he died in 2016, so it's been quite a bit easier. And in fact, my memoir, which I wrote, my published memoir, is all about that. So I would say find a way to write about it anonymously. Try that.
There's one from anonymous attendee here. I've heard so much about not writing from your wound unless it's scabbed over. Thoughts on this?
Oh, I have some thoughts on that.
I know you
Um,
would.
we have people who want to write about trauma. Writing about trauma is fine. Oh man, I've got a whole drawer full of that trauma stuff. The issue is that when you're fresh in it, you often struggle with editing your own work. You can't look at it with the writer's objective eye. When you're writing memoir, you're writing about an event that happened in the past. You want to go quite a ways past, 5 years, 10 years, and you want to be able to look at that trauma that happened to you with an objective eye so that you can edit it or so that your editors can work with it without you feeling really upset by it. One of the things that we wrote into our submissions guidelines quite a long time ago was, you're welcome to write about trauma with us, but do be aware we edit everything that comes into our queue. So if you're still pretty raw and sensitive about it, you may want to self-publish that stuff because it can be a little bit painful to have that edited. Good question.
Um, is it acceptable to write a second version of the same event with a new twist? Sometimes your perspective changes. That's from Tree Langdon.
Tree, good to see you, first of all. I'm so glad that you're here. You're such a great poet and traveler and writer, and I've got a piece of yours in Winfo now. I can't wait to work with it. Tree, that's absolutely fine to do. And in fact, that's a discussion that I've engaged in with Christine Schoenwald, another one of my founding members, along with Darren. Absolutely, that's okay to do. And in fact, I think that the majority of us have that one essential story that comes up again and again. One for me was the death of my brother. Okay. So it's the first chapter of my memoir. I have seriously complicated issues with loss that are resultant from the fact that when I was 19 years old, my only brother, my best friend who was 18, died in a tragic car accident 4 miles away from our home. I've written about that in so many different ways because it's like a diamond. It's going to shine red in some light, it's going to shine blue in another, and that's fine to do. I think it's interesting to do that.
There's a comment here from Elsa. I've been hearing today about writing memoirs in plural. It never came to my attention that people write multiple memoirs. Perhaps I didn't know much about that. Could you talk about how that works? Is it just personal essays or multiple books focusing on different elements of our story and identity?
Can you summarize that and make it a bit more succinct for us? Succinct. Hi, Alexander, by the way.
Yeah, so basically, she's asking if you can write, if there's different parts to your memoir, different parts to your story.
Okay. I think that what you're asking is if you could submit to my pubs different portions of a memoir. And of course, that's fine. Let me talk about that just a little bit. The difference between autobiography and memoir is this. An autobiography is self-writing. Auto is self, bio is life, graph is writing. Autobiography is when you are writing the story of your whole life from go to whoa. You probably won't write whoa. Memoir is when you take a deep look at maybe just one incident in your life or a period of time in your life. So for example, with my book, I'm really writing about a period of about 8 to 10 years when I lived in Cambodia. Okay. So I was living in Cambodia, had a publishing company. Here's a published, collection of the guides that we did for cities in Cambodia. So yeah, you might write a memoir about when you were 10 years old and you got stung by a bee and your eye swelled shut and you learned something about bees. Big lesson that day. Then you might write another memoir from the time that you turned 21 and you accidentally drank 19 gin and tonics. I know a couple people in here who like those.
Now I've got some new prompts to start writing about. Charles Amamiya writes, almost all of my powerful memoirs are stories of redemption, how I transformed my life in positive ways after falling into the abyss. What are other ways to create a powerful memoir that doesn't involve a redemption story?
Oh boy, there are a few different ways that I
That's a
can.
tough one.
You want to get boosted? Just kidding. Not really kidding. Um, I think that it's a good idea to end something that's really tragic or intense with some redemption. I haven't always ended all of my stories with redemption. They might refer to that as slice of life or descriptive writing. In my pub, The Narrative Arc, I'm really looking for a narrative arc. You should be able to say in one sentence something that happened to you. Charles, I absolutely hope that you were here when I used your name today as an example of what is superior in writing. You do a brilliant job. And you, like me, are one of those people that has such a rich and complicated backstory. You could probably write memoir 24 hours a day and never run out of stuff. So I want to thank you for that. That's a great question. You can write memoir any way that you like. You can end it without redemption. I will tell you that because when I'm writing for Medium, I'm actually looking for my stories to do really well. I weave in that redemption, and I'm going to ask my writers to as well. Good question.
Um, Here's a question that I guess I'm gonna hijack the discussion for a moment.
Please
Could I
do.
use the memoir narrative to write about lessons and travels generally, or would that be in the autobiography category because it's too broad? That's from Elsa. Elsa, I'm just going to tell you to take a look at my publication, Travel Memoirs, which is specifically that. It's all about things that happened to you during your travels, and we've got a boost gallery there. You can take a look at some of the best stories that have been written and been boosted, um, and take a look at the guidelines and formatting and that kind of thing. And good luck. Hope to see you there.
I want to thank several of you, including Jim Parton, for that really kind remark. If you haven't read James Parton's work, you should have a look at it. He does a brilliant, brilliant job. Somebody wrote a question I want to answer. Somebody asked, can you take memoirs and string them together in a book? Oh, you absolutely can. Let's say you have a dozen beautiful ocean pearls that have fallen on the floor, just a dozen pearls. You pick up those pearls, you're going to need a through line, a thread. You're going to need a way to put those pearls together into something that's cohesive and beautiful. So if you want to use different memoirs to string together something for a book, you can do that. In my book, one of the reasons it's been so successful is because I weaved in a really strong narrative arc. So yes, you absolutely can do that. Okay, somebody's written, I started writing my memoir in first person after 3 months. A bit of wisdom uh, downloaded, told me to write it in third person to distance me from the pain. Today, I have over 100 words in third person, not yet fully edited. Third person gives me greater perspective. Okay. Do you want the truth or you want to feel good about doing that? I would write it in first person. If it's your memoir and your story, I would do that. I think it it is a distance when you write about it in third person. That said, if that's what you feel like you need to do, go for it. I am not sure who gave you that advice. As somebody with a bachelor's in English and an honors degree and a master's in education, I taught writing for years. I would say if you're writing memoir, it better be in first person.
I think we probably got time for just one more question. There's one from Shaler Wright. I want to begin writing about my relationship with my father. He was bipolar, but I need to approach it tenderly because my mom is still alive and she doesn't want the world to know anything about it. Any suggestions on how to begin?
Oh boy. You know what I think I might do with that? And Shaler, by the way, congratulations on winning second place, I think it was, in our narrative arc love contest. Good job. I would write the stories now and I would save them for later when your parents are gone. I would save them. That's my
Okay,
advice.
I think that's all the time that we've got. It's 5:29. They're going to be shutting us off in a
All right,
moment.
hold on. They will not shut us off. Let us
Okay.
stay here for just a few minutes. Don't let your mom keep you from sharing your emotional truths. Interesting. Fabian says, thank you for your vulnerable work. Well done. Or Go Anonymous, somebody said, you two are so eloquent. Thanks for all that you do. Robin, really nice. I'd like to thank everybody. Claire Kelly, I see you in here. Alexander Verbeek, love having you here. Love having all of you here. Melinda Fargo. I'm just seeing so many good friends. And this is the thing that I love the most about Medium Day is seeing everybody. Peter Sassy's here. Peter, thank you. You are amazing. I saw Doug Brown in here. Doug dared me and said he'd give me $5 if I dropped an olive down my shirt and then picked it out and ate it. But he wrote that into a story. But
course, Doc would.
don't need the $5 that bad. I'm sorry, it's 1,000 words. Oh, Ramona, you do what you need to do, my friend. Isabella, really great to see you. Regina, thank you. Trisha, I just want to say thank you guys so much. Come to Parasol Publications on Medium, and we have descriptors of every pub that we run. Okay, so come on by. We've got half a dozen pubs. We'd love to have you come write with us. I'm going to go ahead and open submissions back up. We are discerning. We don't publish everything. There are several pubs on Medium that do. And if you're just not quite ready to get in with us, I can point you in a different direction if that sounds okay. Does that sound okay? And Marilyn Flower, I will be in touch with you. Please write to me at Parasol Pubs. Each of our pubs has submission guidelines. If you visit Parasol Pubs and you see our different pubs listed, visit them and go to the submissions guidelines. Okay, one more thing. Claire Kelly says, how do you advise poets such as myself to break into the memoir? I find I keep writing it in my head, but nowhere else. You just have to sit down and put yourself into that ugly first draft. I think it works out really well if you just sit down and say, I want to write a memoir about the time I got ditched at prom, because that shit was painful. And then just start writing some words about it and just see what you can do. And then go into the flow. Really start thinking about it. Put yourself there. Try to experience it again. Put that in words. Claire, you're a wonderful poet. Okay, I've been hearing today about writing memoirs in plural. Whoa, it never came to my, okay, writing multiple memoirs. Oh yeah, sure. I mean, and honestly, for me right now, I've written one about loss and love. My next memoir is probably going to be about my horrible cancer experience. Not exactly a fun read, but I've written about 15 essays about it, including a really nasty doctor I had the experience of experiencing. So I'll probably string all those essays together into a memoir. Okay. Does anybody have a last word for us? Let's see. Let's find the last word. Oh my goodness, you guys. This was such a great informative session. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I can't wait to try to read your comments again. I hope they come up for us when we look at our video of this reading. So thank you guys so much for attending. I really appreciate you. I want to give a shout out to all of my friends at Parasol Pubs, all the fabulous editors I work with. I would name them, but if I forget one name, I'll feel like a jerk. So thank you guys, all of you. Thank you for writing with Medium. And we are so grateful to Medium for supporting us today. Thank you, Tony and Brittany and Ariel and Scott Lamb. I hope you're here. I was on your schedule, Scott. I hope you're here. And thank you guys all so much. And we'll go ahead and press the button and get out of here so that we can start heading over to the closing ceremony. So thank you. And we hope to see you soon at Parasol. Have a great day.
Bye.